What is going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Alarm Fantasy Football. I'm your host, Howard Bender. With me, of course, Andrew Cooper. Boys' night out. That's right. No girls allowed. We got Britt Flynn, who's taking the day off here from this show. You probably caught her on the Better Morning Show. I'd key in on whatever baseball bet she gave you because that girl is on fire right now.
Yeah, she's been crushing them like 5 days in a row, going to concerts and stuff. She deserves a day off. But
right? Yeah, absolutely. She got to go see a little Lana Del Rey last night, so good for her. Up early, playing doing the Better Morning Show. So we appreciate everything that she's been doing. She got to rest up. We got the Fantasy Football Expo coming up this weekend, and you got to rest up too, Coop. You got major responsibilities at home right now, but you're gonna be there. This is gonna be exciting this weekend.
Exciting stuff, man. And yeah, I've got the baby at home. A lot of folks they don't know what it goes into it, or at least they've actually heard. But you stay up a lot at night. But hey, the beautiful thing is we can still pop in and talk a little ball. I'm not sure if you just caught it, Howard, but we had Jake Butt on the show before this on the Quick Out podcast. Everybody got to check that out. Because not only did he come in and spit a lot of knowledge, but he confirmed a lot of our priors, Howard. I was a little nervous that he might come in and pour cold water on some players we like, but he laid out why it's so hard for rookies to blow up as tight ends. And then he turned around and said, but a couple guys that we like are in the perfect spot to do it. So make sure you check that out. There's some teasers there for that show.
There is some teasers. Good. Splash one name my way. The player who we like that Jake Butt was like, yeah, dude, this dude's gonna ball.
So the one he actually had Sam Laporta as his tight end one, which we have been on that wagon. So when he came out and said, I actually had this guy as my number one guy, I was like, hey now, let's go. He's dropped the the Iowa tight end factory there. So yeah, fired up, man. But definitely check that out. Quick Outs. Everywhere you download your podcast, and also here on the Fantasy Alarm and Better Sports YouTube channels.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're watching us on our YouTube channel right now, please do me a favor and smash that subscribe button. Hit the like button there as well. That's how Coop feeds the baby now, right? Baby food, not cheap at all.
Not cheap, yeah. And honestly, that's the thing is that you want to do the natural milk, but if you don't have enough of that coming along, then we go to the formula, and the formula is comprised almost entirely of YouTube likes and subscriptions. Okay. So that's really it. I'm telling you right now, I look at the channel and it could be a hungry day. So make sure you're smashing that like button and feeding babies across America.
Feeding babies across America. You know what? Share with your friends too. Absolutely. I know, it's so funny because a lot of people are sitting there and they're like, wow, do I want to share all this info and knowledge with other members of my league? It's okay. It's all right. You can still share it with them. You've got the relationship with me and Coop. You've got the relationship with Britt. You already know what side your bread is buttered. All right. So go ahead. Let them have a little fun with the family here. And, we'll still get you to the championship.
And here's the thing is that if you're a true family member, Fantasy Alarm member, it doesn't matter if people have our rankings. People have my rankings. My rankings are on the internet. I still win a bunch of leagues because we're actually good at this. That's what we talk about on this show, how to be better at this game. Rankings, if somebody follows me on Twitter, they're not going to get the knowledge that you get watching this show, hanging out with us. So definitely feel free to share that stuff. Right?
You know what? I was just talking to somebody over in our Discord. His handle, he goes by the Commish. And we're just talking strategy and things like that about drafting. And I was like, all right, listen, because he had just gotten into it now and he's like ready to like put in the work, and he's got his draft at the end of the month. And so I said to him, I said, all right, do yourself a favor. Obviously, go through the draft guide and look for, strategy specific things for your league, but do yourself a favor, go right to the dynamic tier rankings and go and look at how you build your team, because the dynamic tier rankings are where it's at. Well, listen, like we've said, linear rankings, great, fine, boring. That's going to help you. The linear rankings is going to help you in those early rounds, like those really early rounds. But then when you start looking at the meat and potatoes and you got to figure out how to build that team, building that team through the dynamic tier rankings and understanding what this guy's all about versus what that guy's all about, how this player is going to help you, how this player is a great stash, all of that comes into play. So I said, make sure you just, you you don't have to memorize anything. Understand the concept behind it, and then we'll build that team together. During your draft, slow draft, fast draft, we got you here. Like, we got people who are in our Discord on the regular, just feeding people advice.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this: the best way to really understand the dynamic rankings is go pull up, one of those like consensus ranking lists, and then pull up the dynamic tier rankings and find the spot in the list where Jamison Williams is on the just linear rankings, and say to yourself, how are they ranking a guy that's definitively going to miss 6 games against veterans and rookies? Like, how are they coming up with that? And you'll realize that there's not a lot of rhyme to it or reason to it. And if you're just picking off a list, you might be picking the wrong guy completely versus the dynamic rankings, which actually tell you, hey, this is upside versus safety. This is safe, the safe guy you need to take. So, that's the easiest way. Go check that out. Same thing with last year. It's like Chris Godwin, we knew he was going to miss time. How do you rank him versus everyone else? And with the dynamic tier rankings, we actually tackle those real issues.
It was so good. Like, that was the best part about last year, was the number of people who just like responded after their drafts, who responded after they were taking down championship trophies and getting their championship belts and all the other fun stuff that goes along with it. And they were like, I never thought about building my roster that way. That's, it's literally the best kept secret that we're trying to shout from the mountaintops right now. And you should too. So, but listen, you come over to Fantasy Alarm, you check everything out. You can go to fantasyalarm.com/pricing and just boom, right there. Just go to that page. It's cheat sheet, it's draft guide, but most importantly, it's that 7-day free trial that you want. Take the 7 days, peruse it all, and you'll be like, yeah, this is what I'm going to be doing here for the rest of the season. But that's that news, and they'll just leave it at that as such. Let's get to some football talk here. I hate having to follow Jake Butt and you and John on the Quick Outs podcast, but I'm going to do my best to help us out. Now, we are without our luscious news correspondent, right? But I've got my fake microphone right here. Coop's got the sound effect, but Earn Dog, he's got the sound.
Get it in there, Earn Dog.
Come on, Earn. There it is.
There it is. So you guys must have added that while I was out last week, dude. That's new. That's beautiful.
Hey, man, we can't sit here and just stay and wait for you to get here. We gotta move in advance on our own. But I'm Howard Bender, filling in for Britt Flynn today. And let's go to some of the news and notes that we've got. We got some good popcorn headlines. We got some injury updates. Let's start with the popcorn here. First and foremost, Coop, and let's hit the running back position, because the running back position has turned into the biggest soap opera known to mankind right now. I mean, it's getting as entertaining as it is old as well. And it's frustrating a lot of people, fantasy wise. And let's just start it off with the Kareem Hunt stuff, because I think that's, listen, we know that the Saints were looking at Kareem Hunt. They brought him in. They wanted to see, Kareem Hunt. He's like Alvin Kamara, very similar style of running backs. And Kamara's suspended for three games. So the Saints are now exploring. They're kicking the tires on Kareem Hunt, seeing what he's all about. But then all of a sudden there was a report from ESPN's Diana Rossini, who was like, oh, the Saints are close to signing Kareem Hunt. And that Kareem Hunt's agent's like, damn it, you're killing my leverage here. So I'm sending Kareem over to Indianapolis, where Jonathan Taylor is still sitting with his ankle issue, and try and build some leverage there. So the Kareem Hunt saga continues here, Coop. How are you handling things?
I'll tell you this, man. This tour for Kareem Hunt, compared to the other guys, is moving him farther and farther down my board, because there's a situation you run into with these backs when they know their backs against the ropes and they start signing in less than ideal conditions. The biggest example right now is Melvin Gordon. If you look at the contract that he just signed, he basically crossed the picket line. And while J.K. Dobbins is all upset about his contract, he signed a contract that doesn't have much guaranteed money, but they're basically using it as leverage to hold over the head of J.K. Dobbins, right? Which Melvin Gordon, hey, if I'm Melvin Gordon, I'm taking whatever I can get. Kareem Hunt's now entered that world of like, oh, there's 3 games available here, I'll sign that contract with the Saints. Or am I going to be used as leverage against Jonathan Taylor? I'll go sign over there. So I look at that and I say, that's not what Dalvin Cook's doing. That's not what Leonard Fournette's doing. Well, now that he's entered the desperation phase of hoping to maybe play 3 games while the real starter is out, or maybe play a couple games while Jonathan Taylor's banged up, Kareem Hunt is the guy that if I have him in Dynasty, I'm looking to just get rid of him, move him for whatever I can.
I mean, even if he fills in for, let's say he signs with the Saints and he fills in for the first 3 weeks. I mean, do you not see them either trying to trade or release him? And and listen, I don't. The funny thing is, I don't even know if he's got any kind of trade value
Right.
whatsoever. Simply because this is the first time that we've heard Kareem Hunt's name this entire offseason. Like nobody has talked about him. And Jim Bowden heard from the Browns front office actually that they were super sour on Kareem Hunt early on in the season last year because he lost a step and they knew he
Wow.
lost a step and they weren't going to, just kind of throw him out there and see what happens. And that's really, it's been like the whole downfall for him since last year.
Exactly. So I'm with you, man. It's important to look at what jobs they're auditioning for. You know what I mean? We want the guy auditioning to be Romeo here, not Mercutio or whatever role you're going to be.
Wow,
Sharing.
look at
Hey,
you
look
with
out
the
now,
with the
dude.
Shakespeare.
That's right. Waxing poetic over here. But I'm telling you, like, even if he signs with the Saints, Jamal Williams and Taysom Hill are probably the 2 greatest touchdown vultures there's ever been. So look out for that. That is just not a good spot.
My heart's still all aflutter right now with the Shakespeare. Not only the Shakespeare, but actual Romeo and Juliet characters that you
Just
threw down there.
those
That's
are the 3 characters I know, Howard. So you know.
the only three I know. It's Romeo, it's Juliet, it's Mercutio. I
Yeah,
stopped there.
those are the 3, dude. So yeah, there you go.
All right, let's throw some let's get some popcorn ready here for Jacksonville Jaguars. This was kind of funny. I interviewed Mike Dempsey on Getting Buzzed last week on Thursday. And when I asked him about the Jaguars backfield, the basic breakdown that he gave me was very reminiscent of the old Fred Taylor, Stacey Mack days, where Fred Taylor puts in all the work in between the 20s, and Stacey Mack does that, right? So much so that he was like, didn't Travis Etienne only have 5 touchdowns last year? Didn't only one of those touchdowns come inside the green zone? So
Uh-oh.
we're getting that kind of a build about the Jags backfield, and now Doug Peterson starts complimenting Tank Bigsby's pass catching abilities, at practice right now. So, man, I mean, if you're an ETN owner, dynasty keeper, you already drafted. I mean, I think you got to be nervous if you don't have Bigsby handcuffed at least.
Yeah, it's scary. And there was another example, the Melvin Gordon's rookie year. You remember when his mom refused to wear his jersey until he scored a
Yes.
touchdown? Well, Danny Woodhead, they were using him on pass downs, but also they just trusted him in the red zone. And that's what it was, the same situation, the water carrier between the 20s, right? I worry about that with J.K. Dobbins too a little bit. But yeah, I mean, Travis Etienne was one of the guys like Damian Pierce who didn't really grade out well in pass blocking. And the problem you run into with that is that 2-minute drill, there's no substitutions allowed. So, or I mean, they're allowed, but there's no time for it, right? So you got to know all the plays, you got to know all the audibles, you got to know all the blocking schemes, and it's usually a one-man job. Like J.D. McKissick, that's how he kept that job. If Tank Bigsby can carve that away right away, ETN's value is going to plummet. I still don't mind. I'm hoping ETN comes down in ADP so I could draft him a little bit because I still like the player. But I mean, it's a little bit scary, especially when the coach is saying that he could have that role. I don't like that. I don't like that one bit.
Oh, I love that for all my late shares of Tank Bigsby.
Oh, Tank, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not
So
gonna
I'm thinking
lie,
of
man.
ETN side, yeah.
I've been grabbing him and Tajay Spears of the Titans have been 2 late round picks that I've just been, I've been making. They've kind of fallen into my lap. I haven't even been like reaching for them in any way, shape, or form. Tajay Spears has always been like a last round pick. Take
The
that
Tajay
kicker in
Spears
defense,
one.
last round, boom, Spears.
The Tajay Spears one's crazy to me because, and this goes all the way back to pre-draft. Pre-draft, everyone was putting Tajay Spears and Sean Tucker in the same bucket and saying this guy's missing an ACL and this guy's got, heart condition. And they said, you got to, I'm out on all that. Well, people seem to have forgotten that Tajay Spears went in the third round. Sean Tucker didn't get drafted at all, but we shouldn't be grouping these guys together. Like Spears, a team with a professional medical staff with everything on the line came in and said, that's not a problem. So if that's not a problem for them, why is it a problem for everyone else? Why is it a problem for us?
Because fantasy community loves to make something mountains out of molehills.
For sure.
It's really what it comes down to.
Truly, no.
Right? I mean, you'll learn, Coop, with changing diapers and stuff like that, different colored baby poop. Like all of a sudden, somebody poops a different color in the NFL, and everybody's like, "Oh, hold on, what am I gonna do with this guy? What am I gonna do with this guy?"
Too real, dude. Too real. Like every day, I'm like Googling stuff.
What should I trade him for?
I'm like, is this okay? Like, is it cool? It's cool. My baby does this. Yeah. So my job is mostly to work the night shift and do a lot of video game playing with my baby right here. So my job so far hasn't been too bad. The dad job.
Why don't you baby Bjorn that sucker in a papoose on your chest and write some articles?
I have been, dude. I've got the whole setup, man.
So lazy,
I got it all going.
Coop. You're so lazy. It's unbelievable.
Of course,
laziest
my boss immediately
ever dealt with.
My boss immediately parlays it into a way that I could do more work.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I wouldn't be a boss if I wasn't doing something like that, right? I mean, listen, why should I be the only one chained to the radiator here, huh? Why can't somebody else be chained to the radiator?
I'm here, hour 2, third show of the day, Howard. So
isn't that the best, right? When like all of a sudden the end of your day happens and you're like, damn, I just did 4 shows. I did 5 shows. What the hell's going on?
Now it's time for the baby job to start. I only have one more show after this. So
that's one long show. One long show. Shout out to our chat room. And you guys, listen, if you got questions, we got answers. Absolutely. We'll say hi to Herms, who's shouting out Coop with his highbrow literary references. Good to see you there in the chat. And you guys can just sit there. You can drop in any kind of questions. We're wide open today. We're going to have some fun today. We're going to be talking about fantasy etiquette. And we're also going to be talking about, etiquette on Twitter, basically. Yeah. But we're also going to be talking, undrafted player flag plants. So we got all of that coming up here in a little bit, but there's plenty of room for any and all of your questions. Let's keep going with the running backs real quick. Coop, where are you at with Josh Jacobs? Are you buying the dip on Josh Jacobs, or are you now like, you know what, Zamir White really kind of, I mean, listen, he's listed as the top back. Like, this is what I love this part here. The official and the unofficial depth charts that are now creeping out all over the place. And so Zamir White is listed first and, whatever. So, are you concerned about Jacobs? Are you buying the Zamir White hype?
I mean, I'll tell you this. We talk about the fantasy community going crazy. Billy Muzio just posted a industry draft the other day where he went in the 10th round, Zamir White, which is John and Pemba, who has been pounding the drum for Zamir White comparatively, not saying 10th round, but he's been on board. Even John was like, I asked him, he was like, I've never seen him go that early. So, I mean, it means a little something, but I think at the end of the day, Josh Jacobs is going to be the dude. So I'm willing to take Jacobs where he goes, but Zamir White has to be on your radar. I think now in your real redraft leagues, you'd almost be crazy not to take Jacobs and Zamir White, because you could end up with, if he gets traded, you could end up with 2 backs, but at the very least, you get the starting back in a role that last year we saw was very good.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a very, very good point.
But Zamir White, I mean, it gets scary because now it could end up being like the Zeke Pollard situation where it was too expensive to draft both. So don't go crazy. But if you get White for cheap, if you have Jacobs, then I would definitely consider that.
Jacobs in the 4th or Zamir White in the 12th? Which do you prefer?
Jacobs in the 4th. I mean, the thing is, Jacobs, he still goes in like the 3rd.
Yeah, early. He's still in the early 3rd, but I think the closer we get to week 1 that he's not in camp, I think he drops even more.
I'll tell you this, where Jacobs is going just even a week or so ago in the 2nd, I think I would rather have Zamir White in the 12th than Jacobs in the 2nd. I'm not taking him in the 2nd anymore. I can't do it.
No. Mid-3rd, though, you're okay.
Yeah, mid-3rd. Yeah. At that point, once the actual 3-down backs start drying up, then it's tough. Let me ask you, Howard. You're on the clock, and Jacobs has slid pretty far, and the best three guys available are Jacobs, Joe Mixon, and Jameer Gibbs. Is that Jacobs for you, or are you going to go with one of the other guys?
What round are we in?
And you're picking at the swing at the end of the third, going to the fourth.
I'm at the end of the fourth round.
No, end of the third, going into the
End of the
fourth.
third,
So
going into the
it's come all
fourth.
the way back, and you need a running back here. You went. Let's say you went wide receiver, wide receiver.
I'm going Mixon at that
I think
point.
I like Mixon too, man. Dude, he was on pace for 90 targets last year.
It's kind of funny though, and really kind of interesting because we were talking to Drew Davenport, and Drew is an attorney, and
Yeah.
so the thing that I did ask him is that there is some concern from him that Mixon could get a game or two suspension if this civil case, if he's found that, I think Britt said the preponderance of evidence. If that was the case and they ruled against Joe Mixon, there is a possibility of the NFL acting quickly and saying, that they're going to give him like a 1 or a 2 game suspension. So knowing that now, I'll flip that back to you. End of the third into the fourth, I'm still on the Mixon train, but now let me ask you: Jacobs, Mixon, Gibbs.
I'm taking Mixon, man. I'm taking Mixon, even with Pirine there again with the 90. He had 71 targets, which would have been seventh for running backs, and he missed 3 games. If he misses 1 game, 2 games, who cares? I mean, after I watched Alvin Kamara beat up a guy on video and he got 3 games, how many can they give Mixon for preponderance of evidence, right?
Yeah,
we're dropping Romeo and Juliet. We're dropping Shakespeare. We're dropping preponderance here. This is a pretty smart show.
Highly educated live stream here.
That's right.
Herms wants to know. We touched on the Hunt situation there, but how much do we care for Kendry Miller, specifically in redraft? Like this is, I mean, it becomes a really, really crowded running back room, whether they were to like just use Hunt for 3 games or not. But are you, are you more lukewarm on Kendry Miller now, as opposed to like saying, yeah, you know what, I want a piece of him?
So when I try and put a backfield together like that in 0 RB style or hero RB, and I look at I say, what is this guy going to do for me? Is he a guy I can start right away, or is he a guy that has upside? And the problem with Kendry Miller is because they have Jamal Williams, I'm not sure I can even start him right away. And because they have Jamal Williams and Alvin Kamara and Taysom Hill and maybe even Kareem Hunt, I'm not sure he has upside either. So I'm not even sure what part of that strategy he falls into. He's not startable right. Like if it was just him and Kamara, then I could say to myself, well, this is the guy I'm going to start for 3 weeks while I do the 0 RB thing and find the breakout. But we can't even do that. So for me, I'm personally out on him. And I understand that, hey, sometimes these guys are just awesome and maybe he's just better than everyone they have there. But to be better than Alvin Kamara, you better be amazed.
You better be amazing. All right. So maybe a late round dart on Miller, but nothing that you're like,
nah.
If he falls to you, not even. You're just like, you're out.
Because that's the thing is that where he goes, it's like if I need a guy to start for me week 1, I'm going to take Jamal Williams. And if I'm looking for upside, then I'll take somebody else. So I'm really not taking him at all.
Cool.
Sorry.
All right. Good to know. Good to know. All right. Let's get away from the soap opera that are running backs right now. Let's move into another popcorn headline that I was really enjoying. And that's only because I know how much it hurts the Khalil Shakir people out there. But Ken Dorsey, the OC for the Bills, said that Trent Sherfield has, quote unquote, done a tremendous job of learning things and adds a lot to the offense. Now, they got rid of Isaiah McKenzie. Shakir is supposed to be, the primary slot guy. You've got Gabe Davis there as well. They do like to move Diggs around a little bit. Sherfield has been one of those guys who, I've only considered as like a DFS dart throw at some point later on in the season, depending on the matchups. But, Buffalo still that wide receiver 2 role in Buffalo, I still think that's wide open and up for grabs. And even Dalton Kincaid is still in that conversation.
Yeah, Trent Sherfield, like I feel like he falls in that exact class of guy that coaches love. The scrappy guy, willing to do whatever, right? Cerebral player, the kind of guy you expect to eventually end up on the Patriots. I have to admit though, based on what I've been doing so far, I'm rooting pretty hard against Trent Sherfield. And Khalil Shaker because you have
Aw,
Stephon Diggs. I know. I'm sorry. You got Stephon
aw.
Diggs on
Wait a
one
minute.
side.
So
You got.
I need to take a moment.
So-
Aw,
Sorry. I
Coop.
apologize to all the Sheriff fans out there, but
Shit. What you
shit.
got?
Yeah, but here's
I'm
the
just gonna
deal,
use it
dude.
against you.
Here's the deal, dog.
Throwing
The
throwing shade right now at the Bills receiving
Here's the
coordinator. What do you got?
problem, man. Because Gabe Davis, as much as we don't think he's like amazing and like the next great thing, he's a full-time player. Him and Stephon Diggs are both full-time players on the outside. And Dawson Knox is going to play a decent amount. And you pointed out a little over a week ago that Reggie Gilliam's still there playing a bunch of fullback snaps. I need Dalton Kincaid to get as many slot snaps as possible. So selfishly, I am fantasy wishing for all these guys to go away. I just want them to go away so that my guy can get all those snaps. Now, when Ken Dorsey, he's offensive coordinator, once Miami quarterback, seems like a pretty plugged in guy. If he likes him, then he'll play some. But I don't want it. I don't want it.
Staying away. Listen, I'm staying away from a lot of that receiving core, right? I've got share of two of Diggs. I've
Diggs, I like.
got some shares of Dalton Kincaid, and I've got some shares of James Cook. I don't have any Josh Allen yet. So it's Diggs, it's Cook, and it's Kincaid. So the only three from Buffalo. I mean, listen, it's not that I'm like buying into the fact that Buffalo's got problems and they're going to struggle, but when you see that Miami's boosted their team, that the Jets have boosted their team, what the Bills' schedule is looking like right now, having to face a lot of the NFC East as well. Yeah, it's turning into that situation where I don't really know beyond those three main guys of who else I would even want from this offensive scheme.
Yeah, I'm really it's Diggs and then Kincaid. That's it for me. And Gabe Davis, yeah, I can't do it. Last year, I was so against him at ADP that it would almost be flip flopping. But if he slides, I guess maybe. But no, I'm with you. I just want the big dogs.
All right. And then the last bit of popcorn news we got here, quarterback situation. Anthony Richardson, Gardner Minshew, both listed as QB1 on that first Colts depth chart. I mean, I know that there's some semblance of of a competition here, but I don't know, man. I've got like a little splash of Richardson. There's not much else. You?
I'm not going to take Minshew under any circumstances. Although Minshew might be better for Jonathan Taylor and some of the pass catchers, but the upside is rushing with Richardson. And Jim Irsay told us that this is what they were going to do, that they were going to make it a competition, and Gardner might start, but he wants to see Anthony Richardson, and it's all up to Shane Steichen. He already washed his hands of this. He's smarter than we give him credit for because there's no pressure on him. He put all the pressure on the coach now. So everyone's going to be begging for Richardson, and we're going to get him eventually. I'm not too worried about it.
All right. Good. All right.
Draft
Well,
a second quarterback if you draft. My policy, me and John talked about this on the Quick Out show before this. I'm willing to draft Anthony Richardson at his ADP as my first quarterback, but then I come back and just take a boring safe guy like Jared Goff or Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers. They're all over the place. Derek Carr, it's not a problem. So if you draft Richardson, just know you might have to start somebody week one instead.
splash in some injury news and notes here right now. Seahawks running back Kenny McIntosh sidelined multiple weeks now, sprained left knee. I don't know what's the deal here with Seattle's running backs right now, but I mean, listen, we saw, we know that Kenneth Walker has been banged up. We saw Zach Charbonnet being out from indefinitely to he played 3 days later. So we've got that. I'm not really that worried about Kenny McIntosh here at all. Damian Harris dealing with a knee injury. Does that move the needle for you at all? I don't really feel like it moves the needle for me.
I was already pretty high on James Cook, man. I was low on him at first, but everything I'm hearing is great. All his Vegas sportsbook lines are set pretty high, like 700 rushing yards, and we like the pass catching. So, I mean, I'm in on James Cook at this point.
I am as well. You mentioned J.K. Dobbins earlier. Harbaugh says that he's going to be back soon. I mean, I've never been involved with J.K. Dobbins. I just never. I don't really like Ravens running backs in general. The fact that he's banged up right now, also combination of that with the air raid offense. I mean, those are the reasons that I'm out on Dobbins. Is there more to the lair for you?
No, I mean, you basically have to believe 100% what Lamar Jackson and Todd Monken are selling us, that he's going to all of a sudden transform into a pocket passer, in which case maybe he will dump down more to the running back, but I don't see that happening, man. And the other thing that I saw is they took fullback Patrick Ricard, and he's only working out with the offensive line. They're basically going to have him be like Nick Boyle, and that's not good for the running back. You want to have the fullback there. Like you want that. You want a fullback there to A, block, and B, be just one more player on the field that doesn't catch passes, that takes that wide receiver 3 out. If it's going to be no fullback and 3 wide receivers and Mark Andrews, I just don't see how many targets Dobbins can get, a guy that already wasn't getting many. So I'm out on Dobbins.
All
Explosive
right.
player, would be fun on another team.
So it's pretty relatively quiet news morning here in the NFL, which, you know what, in my opinion, no news is good news. We're sorting through the training camp battles. You guys can go and get the copy of the draft guide yourself at fantasyalarm.com/draft guide. Britt Flynn has been updating that training camp battles article on the regular. So all that news and everything that you're getting, here over the past several weeks, it's all in there. It's all updated. 100%. And then, if you want to get more than the draft guide, that all pro subscription, take the 7-day free trial, scope it all out. Trust me, you'll enjoy it. Coop. All right. So we're going to talk a little ADP here. And in the sense of players not being drafted right now, or super, super late drafts, we're talking ADP of like 180. And
Yeah.
is it above or is it below?
I think
I never asked,
180
a higher ADP, does that count as like a higher number, or is a higher ADP a lower number and higher up on your draft board?
It is funny that you almost have to listen to the context, because I make the same mistake when sometimes I'm like going to write tweets and I'm like, do I say move him? Like, is he too high, too low? So I don't know, but you're right. The way for 180, the reason we use that is your average fantasy league 12, let's say 12 teams, 1 QB, 2 RBs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, a defense, a kicker, and 5 bench spots. That's a pretty standard league. That translates to 180 picks, right? So at the very least, if you have 5 bench spots, or say you have 6, these are guys you can pick with your very last pick, or you throw them on the watch list. And if week 1 comes around and they get a lot of touches, or they're playing like a 90% snap share as a wide receiver, you add them. So that's what we're doing here. We're planting flags on guys that you should be able to get in pretty much any of your leagues if you want them. Keep in mind, they're all going outside pick 180. So, you can't come back and fantasy receipts or whatever can't really screenshot this and say, oh, this, they like so-and-so, because we're purposely digging very deep in the trenches.
Screenshot it. I don't care.
That's true. Actually, I kind of like it.
Can we talk about, listen, we're going to be talking about fantasy Twitter etiquette here, but can we talk about fantasy receipts for a quick second? Because, all right, listen, I don't mind it. I mean, maybe it's because I've been in this business now for over 2 decades, and I've kind of adapted towards, like the Twitter trolls and everything like that. Like, people get so crazed. Like, you tell me, Coop, because you're more in touch with the younger generation here. I'm Mr. Old Fart. And the question is, like, why does it bother people so much that somebody's it's calling out like old bad takes, old, you were wrong, and that was it? Is it to get people to give more transparency, or is it just something fun for some random dude sitting in his mom's basement?
I think they're phrasing it as both, but honestly, I think it's funny, man. And when they retweet mine, I get a bunch of followers. So fantasy receipts, if you're listening, keep digging, man. Keep retweeting that stuff, because like he retweeted one of my things where I said Amon-Ra St. Brown is expensive Jacoby Myers. And I just followed that up by saying that wait till next week when I call him fancy Tyler Boyd, right? Like, the process is the process. And you know what? It's okay to change your opinion. It's okay to laugh a bit, right? So I like when fantasy receipts is being funny. When they're just being straight up mean, though, or they're attacking people's character, that's another thing. But hey, the premise I'm okay with, for sure.
The premise I'm okay with too. Personal attacks, no. You gotta leave that out, right? Like, and I always say that to trolls who like bug the crap out of me. It's like, really, you're gonna try and like fat shame me here? Oh,
That's yeah,
okay.
that's another thing, and
Why
we'll
I'm
talk
on the
about
radio, asshole.
next segment. We're going to talk some etiquette, which is going to be great. But let's plant some flags first, and we'll get to some Twitter etiquette, which I think a lot of people could use a little help with the dinner table manners when it comes to that.
All right. Well, let's start with the flag planting here. You want to start at the QB spot?
Yeah, I will. And so outside the top 180, depends on the platform you're on. There's some more obvious guys on some platforms, like, it's too easy to say Derek Carr. So we went a little deeper on this. One guy that I don't think his ADP is adjusted up properly given the way the offseason went is Ryan Tannehill. He got completely buried here because everyone thought they were going to, trade him away, trade Derrick Henry away, that this was going to be a bridge year, a tank year they're going to give up. Since then, they've done the exact opposite. They drafted a running back. They went out and they signed DeAndre Hopkins, which you only do that if you're going to win now. And they're making moves to compete right now. And when I look around and I see Derrick Henry and DeAndre Hopkins and Traylon Burks and Chigakonkwo, I mean, that's actually pretty good now all of a sudden. And this is a guy that at his age, he's not going to be running for like 800 yards, but he has the same level of mobility as a guy like Sam Howell. Like, people like Sam Howell because he can escape and score a random touchdown. There's no reason Ryan Tannehill can't still do that at this point. So for me, Tannehill, where he's going, I'll take him ahead of pretty much all, besides Anthony Richardson. I'll take him ahead of Stroud, ahead of Bryce Young, Sam Howell, pretty much any of those unproven guys, even my own boy Mac Jones. Like, he has the passing upside of Mac Jones, and he also has a little additional sprinkle of rushing upside. So yeah, give me Tannehill.
See, and I
ADP
kind of feel the
208.
same. I kind of feel the same way about Jimmy Garoppolo,
Yeah.
right? I think he knows the offensive scheme. He's worked with Josh McDaniels before. He knows how to run this offense. He doesn't. I don't need him to be like this big strong arm guy hitting receivers downfield. He'll get his licks in with a guy like Devontae Adams as a a deeper threat. That's going to happen. But the offense, the way it's running, I mean, it's primarily based on efficiency,
Yeah.
and using those short, high percentage throws to guys like Jacoby Myers or Hunter Renfro, or dump offs to Jacobs/Zamir White, to incorporate Michael Mayer or possibly Austin Hooper at the tight end position. And to do that, like, I don't see I don't see Brian Hoyer as somebody who is like competition for Jimmy Garoppolo. Once he got the all clear on the foot, to me, it was like, all right, listen, lock it in. You don't need him to be this unbelievable guy. You're not drafting him to be that unbelievable guy. You're drafting him as like a potential third QB in a super flex league, or you're just drafting him as like a backup QB, like super late in your drafts. If you've got Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, nice and early, you made that investment, then you could sit there and you don't even have to think about the quarterback position. You're not dynamic tiering it. You're taking that top guy. And then for safety purposes, you take Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he's got the weapons to succeed. I think another year of these guys learning the system as the way Josh McDaniels is just kind of laying it out for them. I see no problem with Jimmy G.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, Jacoby Myers, he knows exactly the routes that guy can run, and any idiot should be able to throw it to Devontae Adams. But Derek Carr last year, people say that Jimmy G won't be able to do it. Derek Carr was terrible at getting the ball to Devontae Adams. 55% completion percentage for Devontae Adams last year. A guy that has like never been under, like in the last, like, I don't even know how long, like 70, 60%. He was at 72% the year before last. So clearly, it doesn't get much worse than that. Jimmy G should be fine at that. So I'm in.
All right. At the running back spot for me now, I don't know. I'm looking at what the notes that you put in there as far as ADP. Where are you seeing Jordan Mason's ADP at 173?
It should be deeper than that. Maybe I had the wrong one.
Maybe
Maybe
you
it's
meant
two. Maybe I put it wrong.
273?
I think it's actually 273. So that was my
Yeah.
mistake.
All
Yeah,
right. So there you go. I mean, listen,
free.
it's a free pick. It depends. I mean, especially if you're gonna handcuff a guy like Christian McCaffrey. I mean, you look at the way that this offensive scheme is set up. I mean, it is a great system, and That's why, it's like Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, or Sam Darnold, right? A nutless monkey could run this offense at the quarterback position. And you know what? We've seen the rotation of running backs that happen on the regular as well. So I don't really see why there would be a hard pass or even an overlooking of a guy like Jordan Mason. Yeah, Elijah Mitchell's already hurt.
Yeah.
He's already banged up. Maybe he is the primary handcuff to Christian McCaffrey. But I mean, am I going to spend a ninth or a 10th round pick on Elijah Mitchell, who's like completely banged up, or can I get somebody with in a better situation, maybe even with a higher floor, even if it's at a different position than Elijah Mitchell, and then like in the final round, just grab Jordan Mason on the off chance that Christian McCaffrey or Elijah Mitchell get hurt? Like that almost seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, and Shanahan, there's a reason we call him Hot Hand Shanahan too. Like he
Yeah.
does not care at all about where this guy is supposed to be on the depth chart. I mean, they drafted Trey Sermon straight up over Elijah Mitchell, and Sermon was out the door within a year. So I don't see why not. Now I'm going to risk right now having to put money in the fine jar by saying the name Ty Montgomery, but this time I'm saying it in a uh, in a fashion that's not pro Ty Montgomery because the news has changed on Montgomery. He's actually been working out strictly with the wide receivers. No more running back. He's not even wearing the helmet that running backs have to wear, which that's a huge indicator, honestly, is that if he's going to play running back, you have to wear this helmet. He's not wearing it. That tells me that there's a spot on that team for a potential pass catching back, and it's the more exciting player. So Pierre Strong is a guy that I'm willing to take in the last round in a lot of leagues because not only could he get that pass catching role, but he has insane speed, 99th percentile speed per player profiler. So it doesn't take much to break off a big chunk play if you have speed like that. So Pierre Strong, plant that flag, baby. Let's go. Why are we talking about Ty Montgomery Dynasty Golf Pod? Yes, that is Howard. That's Howard's issue and why I have to put money in the fine jar every time I bring his name up. But Ty Montgomery, the reason we are talking about him is that last year, week 1, he played more snaps than Ramondre Stevenson. He actually played more. He actually led that team in snaps at running back, played 20 in the backfield, had 4 targets, which means that role is still on the table. And if you look at what this team did last time Bill O'Brien was there with James White and with the pass catching back, there is a potential role there. Okay, we like Ramondre, but we want to take a stab on who might be the other guy, and Pierre Strong might be the other guy, and he's free in drafts. Howard, you come back. We're done talking about Ty Montgomery. You can rejoin us.
I appreciate that. Please, Herms is like, please, please, please give us a Pierre Strong breakout season.
We want it. We want it. Billy B.
I mean, I'll take
Bill
that over
O'Brien.
Ty Montgomery breakout season request because I mean, yeah, that's just to me, whatever. We've been through this before. Let's just talk wide receivers here. Let's plant our flag in late wideouts here. Who you got?
Yeah, so people don't like when I bring this player up as well, but I don't really care. If you can,
there are a lot of players that people don't seem to like that you consistently bring up.
Well, I'll tell you the reason that there's certain narratives that I love going against because it works. Like when people say, "Oh, that guy's going to get hurt," I say, "Great." Dr. Fortune Teller doesn't like him, but I'll take him on the chance that he doesn't get hurt. A guy that people are, putting a bunch of memes about because he kind of pulled the brunt on himself, saying he was a top 3 wide receiver, and also he got traded for a pick that, based on some brutal circumstances, the Bears coming in dead last and the Dolphins forfeiting their pick ended up being a first-round pick, which I'll admit that's hilarious, right? But Chase Claypool, I think he's being overly dogged here. I went back and looked at it, and after the trade, the first 3 weeks, he didn't play more than 40% snap share. He's learned the playbook. The first week he gets ramped up, Justin Fields doesn't play in week 12. Week 13, they both play. He gets 6 targets, catches 5 of them, and then hurts his knee and has to leave the game. So they only played 1 game together up to that point. That was it. He got 6 targets, left at 67% snaps. Next week, bye. Next 2 weeks, he doesn't play. He finally comes back, and Justin Fields misses the last game of the year. They played 1 game together, and he was good. So for me, he's going ADP $25 billion. Outside the first 200 players, I'll take Chase Claypool and just see if he can be a top 2 target on the team. And if I have to drop him, then who cares? He's literally the very last pick in 20 round drafts. So that's it. Chase Claypool. Everyone, tag me on Twitter at Coupe Fiasco. Make fun of me all you want.
I mean, listen, the fact of the matter is that, I mean, yes, you're giving a preponderance of evidence as to why you should look at Chase Claypool. You see, you like how I bring that full circle here? The preponderance of evidence in
Right.
favor of taking Chase Claypool. But I think that above all, the main thing that everybody needs to understand, and you know what? Listen, Anthony Estrada popping in here says, "Hey, my second year playing fantasy football." These are some of the things that like new fantasy players need to understand. When you're making those late round picks, you're looking for a player's particular upside. Does he have the ability to break into a larger role? Is there a path towards more targets? Is there a path towards, just better performance? And you give yourself 2 or 3 weeks of watching games and watching, his snap share. You watch, what his target rate is. You watch what the offense is doing, and then you make your determination of whether or not to cut him or not. But cutting him is super easy because he's a free pick. If you're in a 16 round draft, right? And you turn around and you take your defense and your kicker in rounds 14 and 15. Guess what? You take Chase Claypool in round 16. It's a free
Free.
pick. You do
Yeah.
it that way.
Herm's out here saying Google's Chase Claypool. Did you mean Christian Watson? Christian Watson goes 150 picks before. That's
Oh,
not fair. You can like both those players. You can get both those players if that's the type of player you like. It's Frankel said $1 million physical talent, 2 cent head. That might be true. That part might be true. And
oh,
that's
that part
part
is definitely true.
that's part of the bet we're making. The thing is though, this guy gets killed for everything. People were killing him for being out in France during the offseason. It turns out the Bears sent him out there to run a camp for kids. The Bears, his boss sent him out there. Like he wasn't just out there hanging out like Stephon Diggs was. Okay, so you got to give him a break at some point on some things. We can make fun of him for all the other ones, like whatever that fishnet shirt he was wearing while he was out there. We can make fun of him for that. Like that
It was
you
Fashion
definitely
Week. Come on.
yeah, you can make fun of him for that all you want, but for going out there to help kids in France and spread the sport because the Bears sent him, come on now, come on.
Was it him or Diggs that had the crab rangoons on
That
his
was
feet?
Diggs. Diggs are in the crab rangoon shoes. He was wearing the shirt. His shirt that he was wearing looked like a shirt that the guy on like the Old Spice commercials on the horse would wear. You know what I mean? Like this is like he got caught in a fishnet of some kind.
I
So
usually I wear shirts like that. You mean the one that like Sean Astin is wearing in like the 51st Dates, the Sandler movie? He's got
that's the
this.
exact. I think it actually might be the exact shirt.
He's got his mesh half shirt going.
Yeah, that's the one, dude. Yeah. So you can make fun of that, but at his ADP, give him a chance. Give him a chance.
Scott Frankel hitting the nail right on the head here. Coop's just mad that Claypool raided his closet.
I know, dude. Stealing my style, dude. Stealing my swag.
I speaking of your style and your swag, I think I have that exact same shirt. I feel like I wore that to John and Pemba's wedding.
I think you did, dude. Actually, you left it in your hotel room. That's why I snagged it and I'm throwing it on.
What are you doing in my hotel room?
I just seeing if you left any cool shirts.
It's getting a little weird now. My wide receiver of choice late in the draft. So you know what? Take a shot on Paris Campbell. I mean, anybody from this Giants offense is really you got to understand that we don't have a clear-cut wide receiver one. We know Darren Waller is going to get mad targets. We love that Darren Waller is going to get mad targets. But when you're looking at guys like Isaiah Hodgins, Paris Campbell, I would rather take one of those two guys over a Darius Slayton or a Sterling Shepard. I'm not buying, either one of those guys, but Isaiah Hodgins was he ended up finishing the season as the team's number one wideout. But I mean, you bring in Paris Campbell, the work that he puts in the slot, it works in this system, and it works for the quick release that you want Daniel Jones to do. You don't want, I mean, yes, Daniel Jones can run around, extend some plays with his legs. He can take off on his own. That's fine. But, to sit there and have that relationship with his slot receiver and that being Paris Campbell, I mean, it's just, again, free pick, ADP, just inside the top 200. It's a last round thing that if he's got the potential of being the most targeted wide receiver in this offense, or the second most targets on this team in general, I feel like you have to give it a look.
And don't for people forget that last year was Alec Pierce coming out for 2 wide receiver sets. This guy was playing like 97% of the snaps, so he can play out wide. Well, I saw it last year. So maybe the rookie Jalen Hyatt comes in as a field stretcher, and he's the guy coming out. It could be he's the guy that they move around all over the place. So not a crazy pick, Howard.
All right. Finally, the tight end position here. This is just one that, this is more hunch and gut feel than anything, but I dive into the offensive systems of every team in the Fantasy Alarm Draft Guide. Eric Bieniemy left Kansas City to go prove to the world that he could run an offense on his own. So he goes to Washington, but he's bringing Andy Reid's system with him. And what is Eric Bieniemy known for the last, 5 years, 6 years? Oh, I love throwing to the tight end. Our quarterback loves throwing to the tight end. So, yes, you've got Terry McLaurin. Yes, you've got Jahan Dotson. But who's to say that Logan Thomas, possibly even Cole Turner, doesn't start seeing a heavy target rate, in this offense when they are throwing the ball a lot more? I think that it's something just to take a look at. I'll even say this: you don't even have to draft them.
Right.
Right. Just track their target share for like the first week or two. Unless one of them goes, like 5 catches for 78 yards and a touchdown in week 1. Nobody's going to be on these guys. Nobody's going to look at these guys. So keep an eye on what the target rate is, and you could probably scoop them up off of like free waivers.
We did this already once with Logan Thomas in 2020. He was playing with Ron Rivera was having him play 100% of the snaps, and he was playing a ton of snaps in the slot. And through 6 weeks, he was tight end 26. Nobody cared. But we sat back and we were like, this guy is playing a lot of slot, right? He's playing a ton of these snaps. So if that's the case, week 1, I'll add him right away. If he plays 90% of the snaps and is running routes from the slot, we'll add him 100%, especially with those 2 coaches. The guy I'm in on, if we're getting this deep, and we're talking Mike Gesicki goes in the top 180, so we're pretty deep here. Hayden Hurst, and I haven't been on Hayden Hurst in the past because I don't know if he's an incredible talent in a vacuum. But when you go to a new team that every single weapon is new, Thielen, Chark, Mingo, Miles Sanders, Hayden Hurst, they're all brand new. And it's a brand new rookie quarterback who isn't that big and might want to lean on the tight end like smaller rookie quarterbacks tend to do. Why can't Hayden Hurst be one of the top 2 targets on this team? And at that ADP, it's absolutely worth a stab. If it turns out that they're using Tommy Tremble or that, the wide receivers that all have a renaissance and they're all getting tons of targets, well, you just drop them. But why not? We're looking for ambiguous situations late. That's what Hayden Hurst is, right? Easy one.
Yeah, definitely an easy one. I've got shares of him in a number of best balls. I don't think I've picked him up in any full season leagues yet, but again, it's like
you don't need to.
You're looking in that range. I see through you right in there throwing out John Mechie.
Great one.
That's one of your boys. John.
Yeah.
That's another ambiguous situation that you have to pay attention to.
It felt like cheating. Because you and I have talked about John Mechie a lot on here. I was going to go with him. It felt like cheating. He goes right at 180. He's like 182, 184. But yeah, Icy, we got flags all over Mechie. And Icy's a Fantasy Alarm member that's done a ton of the best ball drafts with us. We're going to get those. I took a little break because I just had a kid, but I mean, my kid's like 9 days old now. So I'm ready to get back on best balls. We're going to get those back up and running, Icy. So make sure you get set up with the All-Pro package at Fantasy Alarm and then get in the Discord. And you can draft with us. We're doing these drafts all the time. I'm going to get one set up for next week. So make sure you're all set up with that stuff.
All right. Well, as we promised, we were going to wrap up today's show talking a little fantasy Twitter etiquette here. Just some rules of thumb, some suggestions. Besides just saying don't be an asshole. I think that's kind of the main thing that we want to do. So Coop and I, we each have a couple of different suggestions, helpful suggestions for all of you who are in this fantasy football Twitter space. My number one here is don't be a jerk.
Yeah.
But if you are one, be funny. You can play it off. I can be an asshole to so many different people on the regular, right? But I play it off as being funny, and that's the way it is because, again, it's a game
Right.
that we're playing.
You can have some fun. And and the other part of it is if you're not funny, try and lean into positivity. Like people out there just want to search players they hate and then get in fights. That is not making you any friends here. And I know, people want to be right, but at the end of the day, like we want to represent our brand. If you're a Fantasy Alarm member, you should be representing our brand. So I would say two things here. One, try and be positive. Look for people that you like engaging with and engage with them. Look for players that you like and engage. And if you want to disagree with someone, do so respectfully if possible. Be like, hey, I see your point, but what about this? Right? Do a dialogue. Don't just send like clown emojis and all that. No, there's never been a single take on Twitter that was enhanced by clown emojis or like crying laughing emojis. That never makes your tweet. If you got a crying laughing emoji, do you think that actually makes your tweet better? That makes your take more meaningful? That is the number one thing. You should just remove that from your repertoire. The crying laughing emoji in the
All right,
clown.
let me write that one down now.
Yeah.
I think I've done some crying laughing
Unless you're using
emojis
it the right way, but just like to use it derogatory. And the other thing I would say is, you guys, Fantasy Alarm, members of our site, make your profile nice, right? Have some pride in your stuff. People don't follow you based on your tweet. They don't see your tweet and follow you. They go to your profile. They look for your profile picture, your banner, put right in there. Hey, I'm Fantasy Alarm #family member, right? You're part of a club, man. You're part of people that actually care about this, elite, like fantasy gamers. Clean it up a little bit, look nice, and engage nicely, and we can be a better part of this community. That's kind of the point we're trying to make here, right, Howard?
That's pretty much the point, the exact point that we want to make. It's a great community. It can be even better. Every batch has a bad apple or two here and there, but just we don't want to focus on it. We
Right.
don't want to focus on. A shout out to my boy Jack Senzen, who says, like, you can be an asshole. I can, Jack.
We
I
can.
can.
We all can, but at least be funny.
At least be funny when you're doing it. That's going to do it for us here on Alarm Fantasy Football. Big thanks to our producer, Ernie Acosta. For Andrew Cooper, I'm Howard Bender. This has been Alarm Fantasy Football. We'll catch you next time.